Peace. It's Bronzebird here with another video. Before I begin, like and subscribe. Thank you. So it's been interesting to me. I've been sitting back for a while. I've been sitting back for a couple of weeks and I've been trying to analyze this new story, this new middle ground, this new beef that's on the streets with one of the Black Lives Matter coordinators and members versus the incoming mayor that happens to be Eric Adams, who was previously involved with the NYPD and being a police commissioner, if I'm not mistaken. And in which I analyzed already that more or less when you go into these inner cities or you go to the metropolis, more than likely you're going to find Democrats be basically the lords of the city. Usually it's never Republicans, and especially in a place like New York, it's always been Democrats for like the last 20 to 30 years, probably even more than that. But so many people are awakening to what the Democrats are, what their functions is, what they stand for, and especially so-called Black people are starting to realize Democrats aren't really for them, and that voting for these Democrats is just a waste of time. And so with this incoming New York City mayor coming along in 2022 of January, when his inauguration starts, he will be the second so-called Black mayor after the mayor David Dinkins in the early 1990s, when I believe he got elected in either 1989 or 1990, with his tenure that continued until 1993. And so around that time, I can remember David Dinkins got into a heap of trouble because of how the Crown Heights riots was conducted, and what his response was around that time in 1991. And he caught a lot of flack for that. And, you know, a couple of other cases that happened before he was let out in 1993 and replaced with a different mayor at that time. I forgot who the next mayor was after that. I believe it was Giuliani. And a lot of people had problems with Giuliani. And Giuliani, I believe, was a Republican. But going to what I'm talking about, I wanted to name this video "Art of War" between two Black men, quote unquote, in quotations, because I do find it ironic that, you know, we're seeing this problem go on with someone like this guy. I know his last name, I forgot his first name, Newsome, versus Eric Adams, two so-called Black men living in New York, one involved in Black Lives Matter, the other one involved in being a mayor, coming up next month. So I just wanted to give my perspective on this. And, you know, I tell brothers all the time, you need to get out of Black Lives Matter. They're not for you. And they're never going to do anything for you. Well, everything is about uplifting the so-called Black woman when it comes to the Black Lives Matter or the Black lesbians movement. Sorry. But, you know, a lot of people don't see it that way. And a lot of people may call me a misogynist or this, that, and the third. But what I say is usually true. I mean, honestly, when does the so-called Black man get uplifted in the Black Lives Matter movement instead of kissing the so-called Black woman's ass? And more specifically, the so-called Black lesbian's ass, for that matter. I don't get it. And I'm one more thing. You so-called Black men are the sacrifice for the so-called Black woman in the so-called Black community. I need brothers to understand that. So we're gonna go ahead and watch this video. I'll give my perspective as it plays. But basically, the background story is that there's a threat of staging riots, which this man that's gonna talk is threatening to go ahead and stage a riot if, you know, over the policing plans. So let's just have a conversation about this. Fair use.
There will be riots, there will be fire, and there will be bloodshed. I am not threatening anyone. I am just saying that.
And I mean, you gotta laugh at this disgruntled brother, because look, already you see the whole entire Wakanda chain on there. And I mean, these brothers are so hilarious because, you know, their whole entire ploy is they're always gonna bring up the same talking points. They're gonna pay credence to, they're gonna pay respects to the Wakanda film, because they thought this was about pro-blackness, in which it's not about pro-blackness when it came to Wakanda. Y'all was just led to believe that lie. There's a brother on YouTube that actually touched on it better than I could, and in which he expanded on that. But the Wakanda film was not about pro-blackness. He knew that the guy, the creator of the film, knew, well, not the guy himself, but probably Disney knew exactly that they can cater to the pro-black fans and pro-blackness by going ahead and coming out with that film and thinking that, you know, you guys could fall for the bait, and you did. The brother, the brother is probably going to talk about Pan-Africanism and all this other stuff out there when talking about this and being a rebel against the government. It's always the same talking points. It's always the same ploy. And unfortunately, I have to say this, all of that shit is manufactured for you so-called black people. See, and then a little bit later, he's going to be wearing a sweatshirt that says critical race theory is American history. And I'll give my perspective on that, but we all know that critical race theory is crafted. Okay, this is what I believe they're trying to invigorate the whole entire race war by having that measly old critical race theory come into your child's school.
As a natural response to aggressive oppression, people will react.
Black Lives Matter of Greater New York co-founder Hawk Newsome last month after meeting with New York City Mayor-elect Eric Adams about his plan to crack down on crime by returning the plainclothes officer unit to New York City's streets. It was disbanded in the summer of 2020. So Adams is a retired NYPD captain, and he reportedly fired back with this quote: "We are not going to surrender to those who are saying, quote, we're going to burn down New York. Not my city," he said. Pete Hegseth is...
And I know that a lot of people that was in New York was paying attention to the whole mayoral race that was going on with Eric Adams versus the guy that was involved with Guardian Angels, the Guardian Angels founder, Curtis Sliwa. And, you know, I came to the realization a while back, and I started to understand it for what it is. You know, whether you're perceived as a good guy versus controversy sells, number one. And number two, the word is on my mind. I'm trying to get it out. But basically, if you have a lot of scandals and, you know, you have some stuff under your belt, usually it's about money and prestige and just who has scandals under their belt. And Eric Adams is the one for the job. So he got selected to be Bear.
Standing by with his response. But first, let me bring in Hawk Newsome to respond to that. Hawk, thank you very much for being here. When you listen to the words of Eric Adams, and I know we covered the meeting that you had with him not that long ago, what goes through your mind? What's your response to him on that?
And before he begins, notice his sweatshirt, Critical Race Theory is American History. A lot of these pro-blacks or, you know, those out there that's in the know and stuff like that is critical race theory stuff. It's just all contrived. It's all, none of it makes sense at all. But they put this in the schools to cause more confusion amongst your children. That along with the LGBTQ, I guess what people want to say, agenda and this, that, and the third. And again, I'll always say that there's a brother that touches on that far better than I can. And which I mean, I have no problem doing future videos once I research more of this to have a deeper meaning on what it means and why they put this in your child's school. But there's always a reason for it. I mean, we can call it an agenda, but we have to think deeper. And which, you know, critical race theory is going to be employed to get at the so-called white man, in my opinion, but also in trying to keep so-called black people or so-called black kids into the frame. You know, give them a little bit more history than slavery. Now they're gonna go ahead and take you back to Mother Africa and take y'all to this whole entire ploy about how slavery was this and slavery was that, and try to give you more of the narrative of the out of Africa theory, which is something I don't subscribe to. But that's just my opinion.
Well, the mayor is engaging in a political circus. And my parents didn't raise a clown. So I'm not here to play these circus-type political games with him. I'll say this. The mayor took a trip to Africa, which wasn't covered by the press. his appointees wasn't covered by.
Yes, it was. It was. It was meant. Well, at least it was mentioned. It was mentioned that he went to Ghana after he went to Dominican Republic. You know, and think about it is he's probably meeting up with world leaders and this, that, and the third to understand what agendas he's going to push and what plans he's going to push and learn from them in order to be a quote unquote sufficient mayor.
By the press, so he threw my name out there so he can get in the media. Look at what happened after we engaged in this back and forth. He was on Colbert, he was on Anderson Cooper, he was on Bill Maher. I made him famous, right, for this spat we had. And if
which is BS. I mean, this man, Hawk Newsome, without a shadow of a doubt, is a fire starter. He's a contrarian. I don't know if he plays himself as a joker, but my whole entire thing is he's been known to put himself out there when talking about a lot of these policies or being in the front lines of the Black Lesbian Matters movement, especially a couple of years ago when he had a whole entire problems with police officers about an event that happened in the Bronx. And so I don't believe at all that, you know, that someone like Eric Adams would be using him. But honestly, when you put yourself out there and talk about riots will happen if you come in as mayor, I mean, honestly, why you didn't have the same smoke for Mayor de Blasio when he came in at 2014? I mean, a lot of the P-brains out there that voted for Bill de Blasio did not vote for Bill de Blasio because of the strategies that he wanted to put in place. They voted for Bill de Blasio off of the fact of the matter his wife was a so-called Black woman and that his son had a big afro. I stand by that, and I always say that. And then also the fact of the matter is their family was like the great family, but at the same time, you know, they have problems in their own backyard, for lack of a better term. Their daughter is like drugged out and like look like Zoe Kravitz, and she's out here going along with these protests and showing her boobs on video. I mean, that whole family is a mess, man. And I mean, I know that's personal, but going back to Hawk Newsome, what clout did he need to bring you up for, sir? I've never understood that. And I mean, it's honestly just, it befuddles me that I see now that Hawk Newsome wants to be more aggressive towards the incoming mayor, especially a so-called Black man versus another so-called Black man. And I mean, but still, probably Fox News loves seeing this whole entire spat go on in this bickering match between these two.
The mayor truly cared about what's best for the city, he would have talked about the things we agreed upon in that meeting. But he didn't want to discuss that, Martha.
Well,
he just wants this hype and this attention.
He says he wants to bring this unit back. Listen to what he said. He said, I was elected, and this is what I ran on, and I'm going to follow through on that because that's what the people of New York City have asked me to do. Watch this.
I said I was going to reinstitute an anti-gun unit in plain clothes. Voters voted on that. They're going to have their body cameras on every interaction. We're going to use precision policing to identify the gang members. We removed the precinct level plainclothes unit. That was a bad decision.
So since that,
and the problem is this brother is going to touch on this once it comes up. Well, no, he's not going to touch on it specifically, but I think the problem that a lot of the Black Lesbian Matters and so-called Black people that roam in that pro-Blackness, you know, level and stuff like that, they realm into that level or whatever. They have PTSD for what happened with Mayor Bloomberg back in 2005 when he enacted that whole entire act of stop and frisk policy and the broken windows and all these different things where innocent so-called Black and Latinas were being targeted for random searches by police. And I can remember that time. It was a crazy time in New York City history. I think that's what I believe they have a fear on, that now Eric Adams is going to be imposing something like that. Not saying it's going to be that per se, but it's going to be like that. But I mean, you get what you bargain for living in these cities. I mean, it's not going to always happen the way you want. You won't never have peace and tranquility living in these urban areas at all. You won't.
Unit was disbanded. We've seen homicides almost double in New York City. So he's saying, I want a safe city. And a lot of New Yorkers respond to that really positively. They want a safe city. They want to be able to go out in the streets. They don't want people breaking the windows and stealing stuff. They want to see children be safe on the streets. What is wrong with anything that he just said there?
Well, here's the problem. The man does not have a plan. He's about to be the
Yes, he does have a plan. He's going to put the anti-crime police unit back on the street.
Wait. Can you listen? Can you listen? Are you going to yell at me? Or are you going to let me make my point? You just talked.
Don't do that.
Right?
Okay, don't do that. All right, because I can interject and I can say. Okay, you just say he doesn't have a plan.
Let me make a statement.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I just let you go on about Africa and Anderson Cooper, who no one cares about.
The things that he's saying, the things that he's saying, precision policing,
yep,
focusing on gangs, these are all things that de Blasio said. Crime isn't just up in New York City, it's up around the country. So what is he going to do that's different other than talk? He's had more time.
I'm telling you, he wants to put that unit back on the street. I spoke with a New York City detective. No, it's my turn now. I spoke with a New York City detective who said to me,
Oop, it's getting hot in here.
In June of 2020, let's take turns here, okay? I let you answer. Let me ask you a new question, and then I'm going to let you respond, okay? I spoke with a New York City detective when that unit was disbanded. He said, you mark my words. There are going to be kids dying. This is going to be really bad. Let me put up on the screen. 21 children have been killed in the streets of New York, mostly in gang violence. The purpose of this unit that he wants to put back on the street, this is his plan, you asked what his plan was to clean up illegal guns, violence, and hard drugs on the street. So I'm asking you, what is wrong with putting this unit back on the street if it keeps children of New York City and adults safer?
Okay, there's this thing called the Constitution, and the Fourth Amendment protects us against illegal search and seizure.
Right.
Secondly, this unit has been responsible for the most high-profile deaths in the city. He isn't saying what he's going to do differently. For your journalistic integrity, just ask the right questions. What is his actual plan? He's just talking and drumming up news stories so that we can get this back and forth going again between two black men instead of talking about the things we agreed upon, which was feeding people good food, right? You want to talk about us being in these streets? We have a school where we teach.
And my thing about it is, before he continues, I just find it very ironic that Hawk Newsome wants to be more aggressive with the incoming mayor, who happens to be a so-called black man, when I didn't really see the same energy that is with Mayor de Blasio. I did not see the same energy at all. Honestly, he did have some ploys that he did make some type of new headways when it came to it, but he's never threatened to have a riot out in New York City during the tenure of Mayor de Blasio. I've never seen it. The worst things that ever happened in New York City was that fool, Al Sharpton. Did I say fool? That guy, Al Sharpton, out there was threatening to stage a protest across the Verrazano Bridge with the police commissioner at the time, or the TVA, I forgot who it was, because of the death of someone as Eric Garner back in 2014, in which that case came along. It was a big problem and stuff like that, and it was all this attack on an NYPD. And this is the thing that I have to tell the people. My whole entire thing is, these people out here in the Black Lesbian Matters movement, their whole entire thing is to cause a purge. My thing about it is, they feel as if they rebel against the government, they rebel against the powers that be, it's going to be something in their favor for the everyday citizens. And the whole entire ploy of coming together. Each race, each class, each sexual orientation coming together. And I mean, honestly, a lot of people don't agree with separation, but I mean, this is the whole entire reasoning behind these actions. I mean, a lot of these riots don't do anything but create more reforms and create more autocratic actions, that is. And a lot of people don't pay attention to that because they feel as if they can get away with blasting a window and doing all these different things. And I must say this before I continue this video. Remember the time that the whole entire thing had happened with George Floyd back in 2020, and about how we was on lockdown, and then randomly one day they just called in this protest and this, that, and the third. I must tell you guys, that was staged. It's something I've always told people, but I didn't really have an in-depth conversation about that. That was staged. All of that was staged in order to embark the idea of people coming back outside. okay, and reconforming into society after this test run of a lockdown and people not being able to go outside and you have to stay in unless you was a frontline worker or something like that, okay?
Kids how to be safe every single day. Today, I spent the day looking for a lost 11-year-old. I don't get paid by the city to do this. I'm not
You know
running
what? God
for
bless
office.
you
This
for
is
that.
not a
And
game to
there's
me.
nothing.
But,
That is a good thing.
And you know what? Just one last thing, Martha. One last thing, okay? Nobody wants our communities to be violent, but there are other ways to do it. He's not saying what he's doing differently. Duh, the Democrats have been talking about body cams for the last 4 years. People are poor. You just reported that if inflation is up, people don't have money, people are starving.
People
their
need to be
PPE
safe,
ran
Hawk.
out.
They need to know that the police are going to have their back. They need to know that when they go out on the street,
jobs and opportunities.
absolutely, absolutely, do what you can to keep the kids.
Well, in accordance to what's happening now as we go towards the fourth industrial revolution, I don't believe at any second anyone cannot be employed at this time. I don't believe it. I do believe that each American citizen has the point of being employed virtually or physically. And when I mean physically, the regular way of work, which is applying for a job, putting in a job application and going to other sites and corporations that allow you to be in their business so that you could work there and do what you have to do. But now, because we have the internet, we've had it since the .com era and before that, people are working from home. So I don't believe no one has a chance to make money in unemployment and this, that, and the third. People choose, in this point in time, people choose to be unemployed because they want to. And I mean, I don't believe in relying on government for assistance and this, that, and third. I believe in getting money out on your own. Now, you might have to use the money that you get from unemployment in order to make a marking of where you need to go. But, you know, I'm tired of victimization crap that this brother, Hawk Newsome, keeps trying to put out there. And which, you know, if there's a strife opportunity where people are not being able to have resources, they're going to find resources, AKA steal and all these other stuff like that. So no, I don't want to hear that crap.
And let the police officers go out and keep those same kids safe because they're dying at the hands of gangs who are doing.
See, you don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like to be pulled over and thrown up against walls.
No, I don't.
I gotta laugh because, you know, someone needs to get this brother a violin. I want him to stream up a song for me and create a whole entire Mozart album over the bullshit he's saying right now. You know what I'm saying? No one is saying that so-called black people, because I know he's relating this to so-called black people, being put against the wall and being unfairly treated by police officers. And I know for sure now that police officers of this era is more conscious or more attentive to how they treat so-called black people. This is not to say that there still are cops out there that use their position as a power and a force to go against so-called black people. I'm not saying that there aren't people out there that are racist and that they don't use their occupation to use it against someone. I'm not saying that. But that is not the status quo for every police officer. It's not. And what I will say is that also, I forgot because it's been a while since I did this research, because I did read it, that so-called white people are more likely to be fatally shot by police officers than so-called black. Now, that may be true, that may not be true, but that's the last time I researched. Or is that an equal level where so-called black people are discriminated against cops?
I see that too.
Riding in a car with your friends as a college student.
And I'm sorry that happened to you. I really am. But the fact of the matter is,
you live from a place of white privilege where you don't really understand how they treat us in New York City.
You know what? I want.
And you know that when it comes to representatives of Black Lesbian Matters movement, that they're gonna go ahead and cause an uproar by belittling and trying to cause an abasement towards this so-called white woman that's a correspondent for Fox News by pulling the whole entire quote-unquote white privilege card. Now, my whole entire thing is white privilege, and what it is white preference. I'm getting my words mixed up. white preference, right? So-called white preference in which we live in this period in time, I believe is so-called white rulership. So of course there's going to be certain things in so-called white people's favor, but certain things just don't add up. And especially when you have someone to the left, this so-called white woman to the left, which I mean, I can't always say white privilege all the time, but I do understand there are certain things in this period that's geared towards so-called white people. But at the same time, we live in so-called white rulership. So what do you expect there to happen? I'm not just telling people to throw up the white flag, but let's just call a spade a spade. And my thing about it is certain instances such as this, Hawk Newsome is making an egregious claim towards this so-called white woman.
This
Just
whole
don't understand
city,
how
people
they
of
treat us,
every
right?
background, faith, color,
so you
to be
say you want
safer.
us to be
And
safe.
what I see on the street is that that is not what is happening. Since this unit was disbanded, we have
But you
seen
see
an
that
increase.
all over the country. They didn't
I don't care about that.
disband
We're talking about
gun
New York.
units
You
all
care
over
about
the
New
country.
York. Your Black Lives Matter New York. I'm talking about New York City, one of the greatest cities in the country,
I just came
where
back from
people should
LA.
feel safe.
I do this in Houston. I do this in Atlanta. I help Black people all over the country, like a Black Salvation Army.
That's great. Good for you.
In all of these communities. What are you doing? I found a lost.
And you gotta remember, they always go, that's the next thing they always pull. They be like, you know, I do a lot for the community. What do you do? How many lives have you saved? How many people have you helped? How many 11-year-olds? And I'm not making this as a joke, as in like, you know, teasing an 11-year-old. How many 11-year-olds have you found out there that was lost? You understand? Like, it's stuff like that. And again, I'm not doing that to tease an 11-year-old or to make a mockery of the situation. I'm just saying in regards to, you know, these brothers out there that always, brothers and sisters that do this, and other representatives that may be of a different nationality, they always want to pull up their accomplishments in order to kind of ridicule those because they have an opinion that they don't necessarily agree with. You understand?
Kid today, what are you doing to help the greater
good? Do you know what I
good?
just said
Other
when
than
you
being
said that?
on the
I
news
said,
and
God
running your
bless you.
mouth.
And I would like that child to be able to grow up
creating
safely
a
in this
divide.
city. And we
Creating
don't
a
have the kind
divide.
of support that we need because we have diminished these officers and we have put them in a situation where they can't protect that little 11-year-old that you just saved today. And like I said, good for you for the work that you're doing about poverty.
I don't understand
But you
what
have to have both sides.
They can't protect them. Even in cities where the police precincts weren't defunded, crime is up. How do you explain that? Crime is up across the country. Okay, you say they defund the police, and no, it is absolutely true.
Well, there's a number of factors with that, but when you look at the big increases in homicides across this country, what you're seeing is that the places where police have been diminished in their ability to do their job, which is nationwide, you're seeing an increase
People are getting robbed on Rodeo Drive.
No kidding.
People are getting...
Yeah, we know that. And the thing about it is that there's going to be more restrictions, and it's not because of Black lesbian matters. It's not going to be because of them. And if you look at a lot of the videos I've done talking about in the past about police reform and talking about a lot of these initiatives that they're adding in, I do believe at the end of the day, the fourth industrial revolution will have an impact on police officers themselves, where they're going to have more of the machines take over and robots take over in order to do the job themselves. So it's going to become high tech and it's going to become more demonic as time goes on. And I know that's something that goes over a lot of people's heads because they'd be like, well, Bronzebird, why would you say that? I mean, look, honestly, crime goes up is the perfect recipe for them to add on a lot of this technology and a lot of this high tech stuff, shout outs to Boston Dynamics, on why they're going to go ahead and use the whole entire defund the police as a ploy in order to put this out there. And it's going to be a Trojan horse for that. And there's more ways to slice this pie in terms of the whole entire policing plans and the whole entire thing that's happening with defund the police. There's more than that, but this is just one that I like to talk about and one that I like to observe and like to research because this is what I see is going to happen.
Yeah, you asked what I'm doing. We're covering those stories every day,
People
sir.
are getting robbed.
I gotta leave it there because we're out of time. I appreciate the work that you're doing in poverty. I think people we can have a safe city, and we can also take...
I ain't gonna lie, that did sound like it was a little sneak diss, but, you know, that's just my own little favorite. Peace.